We tried to make what we felt was content aligned with our purpose of connection, trying to inspire and educate, and we were not trying to make candy content, and the algorithm was like, I only eat candy actually, so I'm not gonna eat that. And there were these other things we could be doing that were so much more generative, both that were better for our business, but they were also more fun, more aligned with what we wanted to do.
Hello, welcome back to the Active Ingredient Podcast. I am so excited to share this episode with you. It is with a brand and a founder that I respect so much. I am in awe of what they are doing and how they are doing it. And it's something that I use in my own life. It is actually behind me. I have the founder of Keap candles on the show this week, Harry Doull. And it's a brand that has been on my radar for 5 years. It is a very hyper-intentional candle company based in Kingston, New York. And I had the pleasure of being able to go upstate and visit the studio and meet with Harry and the team and see how they are producing in such an intentional way, in a sustainable way, in a way that feels nourishing and expansive to them, and in a way that is, quite frankly, challenging a lot of what we think we need to do in order to build businesses. And so we get into all of those things in this week's show, but I feel so grateful truly for brands like this that are prioritizing their inner knowing and listening to that and actually taking action and building in that way. I think that as we continue to evolve at the speed that we are evolving, we are going to be craving more and more of these types of brands that are creating from their truth. And we're going to be hungrier for it. So yeah, in this episode, we're getting into building and marketing in alignment, the power of candles and the element of fire, committing to your own inner vision, even if it clashes with the norm. And we do get into alternative ways and things that are coming in the future pipeline that will also be supportive for marketing channels or ways that we can communicate with our people and expand our communities in ways that feel like we're attracting aligned humans. For me, this conversation with Harry really inspired me to start planting more seeds in the non-social media spaces and to start really thinking of ways to connect in a way that feels more human to human. If that resonates with you, we're on this together. We're kind of figuring this out all as we are doing and creating. And with that, Harry, welcome to the show. I have to say, your brand has been on my radar for the past 5 years. And I was actually with my friend Kevin this morning, who is the person who introduced me to your brand. And he got me the little sample, and I just loved the copy and the verbiage. Your brand resonates deeply, deeply, deeply. And I'm just so grateful for you creating it. So I'm excited to get into all things Keap.
Thank you. Thank you for the kind words. What are you can cut this out if you want.
His name is Kevin Gleason.
Kevin Gleason, cool. That
Yeah.
Ring a bell.
No, I would definitely want to keep it in here because he's one of my most interesting friends. And this morning we were at the gym together and I was like, you're not going to believe who I'm talking to today.
Oh, cool. Full circle. That's so cool.
So full circle. So I think the first thing that I want to talk to you about is the decision to not be on social media. It stopped me in my tracks when you did it. And I can only assume that that wasn't an overnight thing. I'm curious about the decision to do it, the process leading up to it, all of the factors that you had to consider, and then also what it's been like since making that decision.
Yeah, so I guess I should say for folks who aren't familiar, Keap Candles is a Kingston, New York benefit corporation. Started in 2015. We make scented candles that combine the artistry of master perfumers with a circular approach to design materials. My co-founder and I worked at YouTube together, or Google/YouTube. More Google, in fact, but always involved in YouTube in some way. So we kind of saw how the sausage was made from the inside. This was a long time ago, but as Google sought to monetize the platform, the incentives that were starting to be put into place, you could kind of see where that was going, and that was raising some alarms for us.
Like what, for example?
Well, really there was one incentive, and it was what was called watch time. Internally at Google at the time, the rhetoric was that watch time is like a really aligned metric with our users because when there's more watch time, we make more ad money. So it's good for us. We make more money. Mm-hmm. It's also good for users because if users are watching more, it means they're enjoying it. More watch time is also good for users. I don't think I have to break down how that's turned out to be problematic. Mm-hmm. Problematic assumption on the real well-being of users. That was something we wanted to take into account. There were a lot of design decisions that were being made around maximizing watch time, which you could substitute for engagement, which is more commonly used nowadays to describe like all social media attention mining strategies and the sort of the incentive system underlying it. Yeah, so all that to say, we were in fact in the ad system of YouTube and got to see the real, we were analysts, and so we really got to see the data and how things really worked. And I think seeing how the sausage was made us not want to eat sausage, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. I'm curious your take on it, but my nervous system doesn't freak out on podcasts or listening to podcasts. And YouTube is like the next one after that it feels kind of like not as grabby.
Yeah.
I don't know if you feel that way.
Well, I would say podcasts don't feel at all grabby to me because one, there's no algorithm disintermediating between the producer of the podcast and the listener.
Yeah.
It's just a direct line of communication. And the fact that it's typically long form makes it less sort of candy-like.
I always say that, by the way. Candy-like.
Yeah, candy-like.
Always.
I would say YouTube is a bit harder to make broad stroke statements as I might for some other social media platforms. But I would say it's trickier because it's both a social media platform, but it's also a kind of video, this isn't the right word, but like a video storage library. It kind of it has multiple roles in one service. I do find that there's a lot of design decisions they've made that are blatantly about maximizing time spent on the platform, like the fact that you can't disable autoplays. You can, but that setting will reset itself back after I think a week. I find that infuriating. But it is a platform where I do personally often find value in it. I kind of wish they were in a different platform or had a different algorithm that could service me all that content so that I didn't end up when I'm really tired myself in a bit of a rabbit hole and just being unable to like remove my eyes from a screen. I experience that less because of some things I've implemented in my personal life, but I still experience it to this day. It's the only platform where I still feel I have a little bit of that pull. So yeah, that's for me on YouTube. But we weren't really active on YouTube as a company. But in 2016, our like first full year in business, and then the subsequent years, Instagram was the real platform we were working on. And we actually in 2019 got very close to shutting it down, and it was not until January 2021 that we actually did it. So it was like really we spent a lot of time discussing it and had some close calls like getting to there.
What was the feeling? Why did that conversation even start?
So one, we weren't enjoying it. I think that's the first place it started, that we didn't, especially at the beginning, I would say we kind of enjoyed it. Like it was a little bit fun. It felt to us, the platform, and we saw the opportunity because we're a rare candle manufacturer candle brand that makes its own products, especially on the luxury side of things. I don't think I know of any luxury candle brand that actually makes their own candles. We saw the potential that, hey, we can actually show people will be super interested to see how this all happens and kind of the magic behind the scenes. And the sort of subsequent waves of design changes, algorithm changes that happened made it less and less fun for us. And it got to the point even back in 2018, 2019, where you would see all these blogs about like how to crush it on Instagram. And they're like, you got to post every day. If you don't post every day, you're toast. And just all these incentives.
It makes me want to vomit, honestly. It feels gross.
Yeah, that's kind of how we felt. And it just felt like having this really annoying toxic boss, basically, that, we left our boss to go start our own company and so that we could run a purpose-driven business in the way we envisioned. And it was feeling like we have this like super annoying boss where increasingly it doesn't feel like we're storytelling for what our audience wants. We're making it for what the algorithm wants. And it feels like as a result, we're contorting ourselves and really having trouble staying authentic and really having trouble telling stories that really come from our inner sense of expression. And instead it feels like, all right, I've got to do this thing for my like master who's demanding this very specific form of content from me. And
what would happen if you didn't succumb to the algorithm needs? Is that something you explored? Just like post when you feel like posting, create what you feel like doing, and don't even care about the outcome? Did that ever cross?
It crossed our mind. In fact, I would say we kind of did that. And then we're like, this is producing zero results because the algorithm's not showing any of our stuff to anyone.
Right.
So even the people who follow us, I think in 2015, the rough sense we had was that when we post something, the people who've chosen to follow us, they see it. And by 2018, I would say that was already like not the case at all anymore. And at the time, it really seemed like they had made it so that you had to advertise to see those people.
Right.
Then I think by now, the algorithm is working on a totally different wavelength. Who follows who barely matters anymore. So we tried to make like what we felt was content aligned with our purpose of connection and trying to inspire and educate. And I think we were not trying to make candy content, and the algorithm was like, I only eat candy actually, so I'm not going to eat that. So we saw that we were spending all this time building all this stuff, even when we tried to do it in ways that we were like kind of proud of what we were making, and it felt good. We're spending so much time on this, and it's not really driving much at all. And then just the sense that there were these other things we could be doing and that we dipped our toes in that were so much more generative, both that were better for our business, but they're also more fun, more aligned with what we wanted to do.
Like what?
So for example, I grew up in a small hotel, like a bed and breakfast. So I just have an innate love for the world of hospitality. We started realizing that a few really nice restaurants were burning our candles in their bathrooms, and I kind of became friends with them. And then we were like, you know what, this is so much fun working with these people. And so it just feels so natural to us and so aligned with what the company is about, of partnering with third spaces where people share meals with each other and often for special occasions. And that feels really aligned with our own sense of hospitality and our sense of prioritizing connection. So that's one thing that we'd like to go further into that, but we don't have enough capacity because we're spending 10 hours a week dealing with our Instagram planning and feed and doing photo shoots for it and creating all this stuff that's ultimately there's all these hidden costs or costs that aren't apparent initially until you like really drill down. And so the return, both in terms of money going in and money coming back out, and return in terms of our purpose of connection, how much of that are we building through Instagram? And then also how much enjoyment and how much inspiration are we getting and what kind of energy is it giving for us? And for us, and I think not for everyone, some people love it and that's credit to them. For us, it was really draining us and making it harder for us to really connect with what was really driving us and what we wanted to do, which when you do something that you just feel intrinsically motivated about, you do a better job at it, you get better results, I think, like pretty much across the board. And we felt we saw everyone kind of more and more becoming less and less creative about marketing and just assuming that you have to be on social media, and that's basically putting all their eggs in that basket and everyone competing in this very saturated world. And we also saw, you know what, no one's doing this other stuff that we could be doing that seems to be pretty effective, where you don't quite get the same dopamine hit because often it's harder to quantify or to track exact data of what's happening, and it might be more long-term also in some cases that you see the results. But it doesn't, just because you can't see the data doesn't mean that it's actually driving less results. And we found that those things that often have been way better results. I mean, definitely, because our social media was really negligible in terms of what it was actually bringing for us.
I'm curious because this requires having long-term vision. How do you justify something that's long-term? And what would you say to someone who feels like, yeah, but I only have so much cash to run this business?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I think the first question is are you losing a big return right now? Because I think some people may be getting lots of returns from social media. And if that's your case, then you have a big question there. Like, how are you going to fill that gap? And the transition is, if you're wanting to embark on this route, is going to require a bit of thinking on that level. But from what I've heard from all the people who've been reaching out to me this year about wanting to get their business off social media, that there's a lot of shoulding themselves and thinking that they'll somehow lose relevance, or that somehow it's just a really like almost an identity marker that they'll lose, rather than it actually, when they look at their numbers, it's in most cases, it's not actually driving the results. And so from a financial basis, there's no short-term loss. Like actually investing their energies in the other thing, even in the short term, is going to be better for them.
But you knew when you shut it down, you did already know which marketing channels you were going to be focusing on. It wasn't like you shut it down and then figured it out.
But we kind of thought we did, but in hindsight, we could have spent more time thinking about it. I think it's taken us a few years actually to really get going on those other things that we wanted to do. So that's something I wish we had been ideally a bit clearer on. At the same time, I don't think I would have delayed, because we really haven't lost anything from getting off, honestly. There's very little like actual things that I would say like, okay, that's something we lost. There's nothing significant, at least from our point of view. But it does, some of the things that we've worked on have taken us a long time because they were honestly a little bit more outside our wheelhouse. Like we worked at YouTube, so social media was actually very native to us and very comfortable. And when we would talk to our investors, they were excited about us doing it, mainly because they're like, you guys are like the YouTube guys and you're going to know totally what you're doing and you're going to crush it. Whereas we were kind of like, yeah, but we don't really want to do that. And some of these other things that we've taken on have been just areas of total learning for us. But at the end of the day, it hasn't required that much specific skill building and more just a change in mindset around that. Growing our business really equates to building relationships and growing kind of our nodes of connection with other businesses and other entities and lots of people who are doing interesting stuff. And the more we have that and people that we genuinely care about and who genuinely care about us, the more solid our business is. Because even think of it in basic relationship terms. If you've never spoken to anyone in your village, you live in a village and you've been kind of on your own and you've been, say, scrolling on your phone all day and something happens to you and you have an accident, the other people are probably not going to rush to your aid. But if you've been building connections with people, building relationships, you'll have all sorts of wonderful things that will happen with that community that's going to want to support you just on the basis that they have that familiarity with you, that they have that sense of like we're of kinship in some way or another. So I think that's true for especially small businesses, that building those links leads to surprising opportunities. And often, you have to have 100 conversations to have like 10 things that come out. And then there's maybe one that's life-changing.
Right.
But doing algorithmic marketing, you're going to have 0 life-changing things happen guaranteed. And you're not going to have those 10 nice opportunities either. You're just going to have this very expensive acquisition channel that's in some cases maybe not aligned with what you want to be doing. Again,
how did your investors take the news?
So we're very fortunate. We don't have any institutional investors. We only have individuals who've been overwhelmingly supportive in general of everything we've done. We've been super lucky, especially considering that most of them do come from the tech world, people that we met at Google in particular. I think they found it, the feedback we got was mostly positive, actually. They thought it was interesting. It's funny, even though people who work in tech tend to be like the people who have the lowest device usage of their children.
It's so true. Yeah.
And I
They
think
saw how the sausage was made. They're like,
they saw how the sausage was made, and I think most people in that industry feel real mixed feelings about it all and about their own involvement in it.
I actually was curious when you were in those rooms at YouTube and Google, what did it feel like in there? The leadership, are they also dealing with an existential, like, this feels wrong, but we're still going to keep doing this type of energy? Or is it just the majority of the people there actually are like, the algorithm is the algorithm and we're doing it?
Well, so I left at 15, I think it was. And so I think there were a few things. One is the harms of social media were not yet broadly apparent. They were still like theoretical future things as far as most people understood. So I think that immediacy wasn't there, being like, oh man, I'm causing all this harm. People didn't have that sense yet, that perception of it. Then I would say there was also the fact that everyone was working really hard, really busy. They have no time and they're kind of rushing from one thing to the next. And so there was maybe just a lack of sitting down and like thinking about that. There was just so much focus on short-term revenue metrics, basically, just constantly. And as a result, inconvenient questions that kind of put into question the model that lets you take home this very generous paycheck from this company that's also feeding you like sushi lunches and giving you nut pods and things is like a very tough thing to decide to devote energy to rather than continuing to serve the thing that's giving you your sushi meals. So I think there was a kind of natural human response to be like, ooh, that's going to open a whole can of worms. I don't know if someone else can maybe think about that. It's not that I don't care, but it's that it's a whole thing. And there's also, I think, a risk aversion, especially as the company was growing and it was like, in my opinion, McKinseyfying in the inside. And you got more and more sort of a shift from the sort of to stereotype, the sort of like hippie, crazy tech nerd of the start of Google to more of a sort of corporate executive culture coming in, like strong risk aversion of if you bring something up like this and really invest your own leadership, your own sort of political capital in it, a lot of bad things could happen to you, but if you ignore it, not really too much bad can happen to you. I think that's true in
the short term, I guess, because I feel like this is not sustainable. And I feel like at some point, I don't know. Actually, I am curious on your take on this in the next 5 years where you see this going? Because I mean, the fact that you're getting so many more calls from founders on how to get off of social media. As a consumer of social media, I'm also like, get me off this thing. As a business owner, I'm also finding myself, sometimes I find so much joy in creating for my tableware brand. I genuinely do. And then other times I'm like, I just want to connect with people. And like, this is the medium that I find to be the closest. But I feel like we're hitting a certain place where I don't know that it's actually going to be the right choice for the person who's working inside of that YouTube office in the long term. I don't know. What's your thought on that? How long is this going to go for?
I definitely think it's not sustainable because I had said 5 years ago, I misforecast when in 2021 thought social media was going to be like gone in some way or like completely overhauled, either regulated into something totally different or morph into something. Basically, it had to change radically through some force or another within the next few years, because otherwise it was going to destroy our democracy. It was going to destroy our kind of polity and our ability to have any kind of basis of truth, to be able to dialogue with each other. And yeah, unfortunately, like we didn't.
I mean, all of those things are still true, but it's still here.
And all those things are happening in pretty big ways. So, and yeah, I was kind of thinking like either social media is going to go away, or we as a democratic society, a flawed democratic society, now it's more than flawed, but is going to be gone for something much uglier. And I still hold hope. I don't think it's all doom and gloom. I do think there's like big cultural change happening. You don't hear about it that much because obviously it's not a sexy story for the algorithms. I don't think the algorithms would like
promote that. They don't
manually like prevent that kind of storytelling from come up.
They really do. Trust. Like I see it.
Yeah.
I see it.
Yeah. And I'm not surprised that even maybe there is like a sort of proactive sort of dial turn there, but I would expect that the algorithm, just in terms of maximizing engagement, would not promote that. Kind of story either.
So like with the gravity of this all, and even with a product like Keap, that in my eyes, I see it and I'm like, I want everyone to know about this brand. When you want to meet people where they're at, so that they can feel that resonance, which is what I keep feeling, that if we can all feel it, then you start to remember that this is all insane what we're living in. And then you start to make different choices. And then that's how you tip the scales. But at the same time, like to meet people where they're at is to meet them on Instagram and on TikTok. They are there.
I'd say there is an element of, if you're trying to scale a multi-billion-dollar business, yeah, it's going to be probably tricky. But most small business owners I speak to are not trying to build a multi-billion-dollar business. They're trying to build a $5 million business or a $500,000 business. Yeah. And for that scale, I don't think you need those tools.
But is there a world where you can still be continuing to do things like, I guess the decision to like fully not be in it at all when you're doing something that's so resonant and you're doing something so honest, don't you want everyone to know about it?
Yes. No, great question. Actually, great questions. And the short answer is yes, we do want everyone to hear about it. Or not everyone, because I don't think our message is necessarily interesting to everyone or what we're about, but we want to be heard. There's an element of even people who are on social media, and most of our customers are on social media, they are also other places in their life. They're not always on Instagram on their phone. They use technology in other ways. They use other services. And then they go to stores, they go to restaurants, they go to schools, they go to all sorts of different places. If you really get to know your customers, you learn that there's like lots of much better moments for them to meet you the first time and have that sort of like first date experience with you. It sets you off on the right foot. And one thing that was powerful for us was realizing that, and I'll go back to the restaurant analogy, where when people discovered us at a restaurant, when we get so many emails from people, like long emails where they're like, I got to tell you about how I discovered you guys. I was at this restaurant, I was meeting up with these old college friends that I hadn't seen in 10 years. And we just had the best time, got kind of drunk and just were laughing so much. And it just felt so warm. And I really needed this connection with these friends. I'd been feeling really lonely, et cetera, et cetera. And then I went to the bathroom kind of tipsy and I was like, what is this smell? And then buying the candle reminded me of that amazing experience. And so I contrast that experience, which we just love to hear. And we feel like, man, this is like our purpose being lived out to the max. And we contrast that with thinking about the typical experience of someone finding us on Instagram, and it's like 2:30 a.m. and they're on their bed and like they know they should be sleeping and they've been scrolling for 2 hours and it's just like doom, and we're kind of coming in that moment. And if they decide like, you know what, I'm going to click in and learn more and maybe buy something, that we found actually, like we did an analysis at the time back in 2020, that our least loyal customers were the ones who initially found us on social media. Our customers with the highest rate of returns were the ones who found us on social media. And then anecdotally, we found that most of the customers who I would say we internally were like the annoying customers, which is so rare. Like we have amazing customers. I hate to like call anyone annoying. But the very few entitled emails where people treated us like we were some huge corporation, basically, and there was this clear sense of like, these are not like people, was all from social media. And I think that was indicative of the state of mind that people discover us in, because I'm sure if you were kind of that same person in a totally different context, they would be super sweet and treat you like a human being. And I think that the platform and the way it's fed to us creates that sort of mindset in us, and this sort of sense of disconnection and fragmentation, and the sense that if someone is promoting something on Instagram, it kind of gives us all sorts of assumptions and a sense of almost of lack of worth, that this thing is like, it's a commodity really, if it's on there. And so I think I'm actually, to come back to your like previous question around thinking about the future, and I'm not policy analyst or anything like that, but I'm very excited about actually the wave of new apps that are coming out. There's a lot of work happening and a lot of new people coming together, whether it's the Fediverse or lots of open source projects that are being built. And I don't think we've yet landed on like the things that really are going to stick, but there's a few that are starting to really stick. And there's so many people just searching for alternatives who want to get off algorithmic social media networks, but who want the social networking component. They want the connection that comes from interacting with other people online, which is still, really valuable and holds so much promise. And
yeah, we need like a nourishing platform, a place that has your best interests at heart genuinely.
Exactly. And I think a lot of people are working on trying to build those. And I think the difference in the future that's being built is that it's not going to be like one platform that everyone's on. It's probably going to be a bit more scattered and lots of different smaller platforms. There's one example that comes to mind immediately, which is ghost.org.
I haven't heard of it.
Yeah, it's a really cool company. I don't know them personally, but they seem really great. They're a foundation-owned company that's basically the nonprofit version of Substack. But their tech is even better than Substack.
I'm gonna look into it.
They take a much smaller share of creators' earnings, like much smaller, and they allow you to do so many other things that Substack doesn't let you do. And Substack is clearly heading towards becoming a full-on attention.
I don't feel good on Substack. Like, I have never said this on the podcast, but like I love to read. I just vibrationally, it doesn't land with me. Like, it's not a place that I want to create on personally. Yeah, like I love emails. Like, I love receiving emails that are intentional, but Substack itself as a platform, I used to, and now I'm kind of like not the most, I don't know. Like, I don't seek it out. Are you guys on Substack?
No, we're not. And we were kind of discussing it, but then I think we got to see, learning that they've received all this venture capital backing from the likes of Andreessen Horowitz just kind of tells you, already like where they are going to be forced to head, whether they like it or not. But I think my sense is that they like it also.
Like, I just don't like the feeling. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I don't know for sure what you're feeling, but what I've noticed is that they have been implementing more and more features that are akin to the dynamics of social media engagement maximization. So I don't think Substack is the answer, but I think many platforms, including Ghost, which is just really trying to build an alternative space where we can still connect. In this case, it's really around creators sharing things. But I think there's lots of other types of, whether it's your local neighborhood forum, the tech is already there. It's actually easy to build these things now. But there's lots of, I think, avenues to build really, like you said, apps that have your back, and rather than extract as much as dollars as they can from you. I actually am excited by that, and I think there's opportunities for small businesses too to be on the vanguard of that.
I'm so curious to see what you guys are thinking about creating. I would want to read something from you or see something from you. Like, I would seek it out. You know what I mean? But I totally get that it has to be on a platform that feels good. And I am too excited to see what those are going to be, because I just don't think that they're there yet.
We're thinking strongly now of
create one.
Podcast, of making it.
But you could do a podcast, and with your YouTube Google background, please create this nourishing backend for all people.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I have like toyed with the idea of starting a social network, but I'm pretty busy with the candle thing. But yeah, it's definitely something. If there are other people who are interested in this space and who want to connect with me, I'm always looking to connect with more people, whether it's business owners who are trying to get off social media or have already gotten off,
Yeah.
or people who are in that space of creating some of these alternatives. I'm super excited to connect. And as well, creators who are trying to move off. I hadn't realized until recently just how many there are. I mean, then the growth of Substack is a little bit of a result of that, of people kind of migrating to Substack as they escape from that.
Yeah.
Though I think increasingly, I also hear feedback from others that they're feeling increasingly like Substack's maybe not it. So interesting times.
Okay, so I do want to know right now at this moment in time, what channels are working for you? So you said restaurants, community. Are there any other practical tools that you would want to give listeners on places that have worked for you?
I mean, our newsletter has been the main thing for all this time. Well, the number one is just word of mouth, actually. And I know that sounds like not super helpful advice for trying to grow your business, but truly like making, you mentioned how it felt like when you received your candle. Making that experience and the product itself as good as possible is kind of a base requirement, but generates the most growth of anything that we do. So that's the number one. The number two is the newsletter. So our email newsletter, we've pretty much always invested a lot of time into, and when we got off social media, we actually started investing more time in it, and more time also surveying our customers and trying to get a better sense of how we can make it really compelling and interesting for them. And I think I'm quite proud of the fact that we get feedback that our newsletter doesn't feel like marketing emails, but feels more.
I don't think I subscribe, and I'm like, okay, I must ASAP.
Yeah, that it feels more like a note from a friend or something, which is what I try to make it like.
Is it notes from you?
It is notes from me, and I get some really nice responses back, and I also try and share those back out with the community. So yeah, we try and keep it vibrant and not too one directional. An aside is that I really get excited at the idea of both having a podcast and then having some kind of like group forum where we could can have a bit more interactivity and a bit more like commingling between our keepers, as we call them. And so newsletter, we work with hospitality a lot now. We work also with...
What does that look like with hospitality?
It's typically just burning the candles in there.
Okay.
And then we work with stockists too. So we're always on the lookout for independent boutiques, especially kind of both, like it can be like gift stores or spa boutiques, but also we like unusual things where you don't necessarily expect to find a candle. We love working with like bookstores, coffee shops that have a little selling area. We just like to have a mix of things that feels values aligned to us, feels like, congruent for our candles. And then we have a bunch of new things that we've been working on for a little while. Press side, I'm more trying to get our story out through other channels and through other people. And it's mostly not, I mean, it's proactively not through social media, though sometimes we might get a write-up and, they repost it on their social media. And we're not like telling them like, you can't post about it on social media.
Don't you dare put my name there.
That would be intense.
I'm sure people are still, I went to go talk to you guys the other day and it didn't come up for me, but I'm sure people like still are trying to like see something. You exist on social, right? Like it's still there.
In fact, I've been meaning to kind of just update our profile because we haven't touched it in a really long time. I mean, basically in 2021, we left it there, but we put a message in our bio saying we're no longer here. Here's where to find us and follow us. And we left a bunch of autoresponders. And I basically, the only times I check it are when someone sends me a screenshot of an Instagram thing. They're like, oh, this person like shouted you out. That's great. And so then I go in and then like find it. But basically, I just don't think about it. And I realized recently, like, we should probably just update it so it kind of still looks like it's our company, because we've changed a bit in 5 years. It's a long time. 4 years, 4.5 years. And I think we could just clean it up a bit and, be like, okay, we're done. Bye-bye.
Quick refresh and then we're done. I'm curious, how did you sustain during the pandemic when people were not going to restaurants or hotels, or was it the newsletter?
It was the news. Oh man, it was like boom times for us. Yeah. The whole home goods industry.
Staying at home.
We really didn't have to do anything.
Wow. Okay.
It just came to us. Like people heard about us. At the time, we had this really nice write-up in the New York Times that came out. Also, that drove a ton of people to us. And then the newsletter and word of mouth from the newsletter. So yeah, during the pandemic was actually, we had to put the least thought in our marketing and growth, actually. Well, The first few months were terrifying, and with the shutdown, we were really worried about going out of business. But in the second half of the year, where it felt like, wow, that's never been so easy.
I mean, yeah, if you're producing everything yourself, you're not waiting for anything outside of the country. You have already a base, because that's another thing is that like at the moment that you are no longer there, you had already built a business that people had heard of, whether it be through social media, New York Times, whatever. Like people already knew you existed. So it's not like you were launching a business with no social media.
No, but I think if I were launching a new business that was really similar to this, it would be easier to start without social media from day one. I don't believe it's better to start with social media and then switch over, because
That's
you want to
interesting.
build the channels that are going to be your sustainable growth channels as soon as possible. And in any case, like when most businesses, I think, succeed, the first, like getting your first few customers where you can get lots of feedback, where you can start to get reviews and things like that, they come through much more personal routes, where it's like going to pop-ups and like
Yeah.
being more yourself to talk to people, going to talk to panels. There's all these things that we like to continue doing, but those are the first things that really help you build a sense of like, this is a real company with real people, and I want to buy their stuff because it's good, but also because I feel some sort of connection to that.
I'm curious on you personally, and I'm assuming that your team is the same, but to have that kind of inner strength, that long-term vision, how did you come to have that solidness within yourself to be able to just totally not do something the way that everybody else is doing it in business, especially coming from that background? What has your inner process been like to self-validate without needing that candy hit from social? What does that look like?
Good question. I'm still a little bit trying to figure that out myself, but I will say I did require some external validation. I mean, one, I had my co-founder, and so we both were in a very similar place and both kind of expressing the both sides of the argument, I think, but going through it together, I think helped a lot and give us both the confidence that we weren't totally crazy. And then apart from that, I think it could be a variety of things. I'll credit my father for having definitely done a lot to instill a bit of that self-confidence in me, that even I'm a very, I think, relatively soft-spoken person, and I'm not a super extroverted, but I think I've always, since being a little kid, had a bit of a sense that like, yeah, I can probably figure it out. But there's another aspect, which is when I grew up in a kind of unique context. So my parents ran this bed and breakfast, but I didn't mention that it was in France. But it was also in France, in a very rural, isolated area, which at the time had virtually no other foreigners besides us. And I went to school being the only foreigner and also the only non-Catholic person. It was actually the only school nearby was a Catholic school. And even though I was like ethnically looking similar to people there, I definitely had a sense of like, I'm different from everybody else. And I think that's where I would, again, credit my dad for kind of teaching me that being different was actually a strength, not something to try and like wash away to like conform with how everyone else is thinking. And then I think also I would spend, not every summer, but some summers I would go to the US to visit family, and seeing that actually in France, there's some things that seem like it would be a lot easier if they did it this other way that they do it in the US. And then going to the US, it seems like there's a lot of things that would really be beneficial if they adopted some of the French things. And that each place kind of has its strengths and weaknesses and blind spots. But it also makes you realize that in both places, everyone feels utterly convinced and 100% certain that the way they're doing things is the right way to do things. And so I think it just teaches a little, seeing like having that multicultural lens just teaches you that where people stand is a little bit relative, and the sort of conventional wisdom is probably a good thing to listen to a majority of the time, but there are many times where it would benefit from being questioned. And I think we happen to also just have a lot of context on this topic. We had worked at YouTube, etc.
Yeah.
So we felt like, and then I think that the data side of it, that we were data people also from our previous job. And looking at the data just helped us give us the confidence. I do think if we'd seen like, man, Instagram is actually our main driver of business, like this is going to be a real undertaking to replace it. I'm not saying we wouldn't have taken this decision. It would have been a very different approach, and probably I'm sure would have been more hesitant about. And I should say also, it wasn't like a quick decision. Like I said, in 2019, like it took us 2 years from our first moment of being like, let's get off, to like actually then doing it.
What's your process to like, do you have practices to connect with that inner guidance, that voice that's telling you it's time to get off social, or like it's time to do it in this way that feels resonant? It's time to start a podcast. Like, do you have a connection to something bigger? Like, how are you listening to that on a practical level?
Question. The first thing that comes to my mind is I've always been big on trying to get a lot of advice from other people, especially people that I think are well informed on the topic I'm needing advice for. And so I will reach out to people who I haven't spoken to in 2 years and be like, "Do you think we could like chat about this? Would you be willing to share your wisdom with me on this question?" We took on a lot of formal advisors when we started Keap for the same reason. We want to have lots of people that we could get advice from. And if anything, just to build the confidence that we have people we can ask for advice, like kind of ready to go, even if in practice it wasn't always as useful as we anticipated. And I find that what often comes from that is a bit like you were saying with before we started this, that you valued like just in formulating your own questions, it helped helped you connect kind of with what you were thinking. I think I definitely have that with all those conversations. I also have a business coach who's fantastic that I, in times of doubt, of self-doubt or of like real, like I'm really not sure which way to go here, I get that perspective from someone who's spoken to thousands of other similar businesses. So yeah, I think getting advice, it helps me connect actually with what I'm myself thinking. So I think I have.
I think you must start a podcast.
I want to, yeah.
I think it's your next step. I think
well,
you nailed it. I really recommend it to anybody who's curious. Like it helps connect dots so much.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love podcasts. It's definitely great.
I'm curious within your role as founder and just with everything that you have going on, in what area of the business do you feel like you come alive the most? That you're like, when you see that on your calendar, you're like, yeah, I'm so pumped to do that.
Good question. Because one thing I really love is the variety and the very different parts of my brain that get activated through the different things. So I'm having to let go of different parts of the businesses as we grow and expand, which I'm also excited about. I'm excited about creating the systems for folks to become more autonomous and to themselves make way better improvements than I could ever have made because they're going to be way more expert than I could ever be. So I didn't think I would be that interested in the manufacturing side of things when we started the company, but I love it.
What about it?
I think it's once we discovered lean manufacturing, it changed everything for us. And
can you give us high level?
Yeah, so lean manufacturing, there's a bit of a misconception that often I think in popular media you hear lean mentioned when there's like supply chain problems or cost cutting, and it's often used more as a synonym of like cost cutting. It's basically McKinsey coming in and laying off 3/4 of the workforce and saying we're going to cut costs and make things crappier. That's not lean, that's just cost cutting. Lean is a specific manufacturing methodology, philosophy, and culture that comes from Toyota. And to really summarize it, it's based on the idea of, a better word, of like human flourishing. It's based on the assumption that people want to contribute, that people, if given the tools, the training, and the autonomy, will want to make things better. And basically, in terms of how it compares to traditional manufacturing, and you can think of like Fordism as that traditional manufacturing, is you make huge batches of stuff, and you have managers in an office who design the system, and then a bunch of operators who are essentially hands who like make the stuff and could be replaced very easily by robots because they're not even not encouraged, they're sort of prohibited from thinking about what they're doing. They just need to do the thing and clock out. And lean is like the complete opposite. There's really essentially virtually no managers, and the operators and the managers are kind of the same person. And so you're asked to view the work through the lens of how do I improve this work as I'm doing it, and given lots of tools and training to do that. So it's a much higher bar in terms of like there's certain basis of just like education of like numeracy and literacy that's much higher. And I think the US really struggles with lean manufacturing for a lot of reasons, but there are lots of little hotspots of lean manufacturing in the country and little examples of great companies. And what you find is like people in those companies love their work. It's so much more enjoyable. There's so much more of a sense of purpose and empowerment because you get to, if you have an idea about how to make your work better, you get to do it.
I love that. It's so empowering. When you started implementing that at Keap, what did you see, or what shift did you see in your manufacturing process that you were like, damn, that's sick that you came up with that and that's now part of our process?
But yeah, I definitely won't take full credit for it, but we started the lean journey in 2020. So when the pandemic shutdown happened, and we actually moved to Kingston at the same time. There was so much, that year was crazy.
Damn.
So much change, and we actually had a lot of change in the team because with the pandemic, we had a very small team before the pandemic, and almost the entire team moved to California, all for different reasons. And so we're left with not that many people from sort of pre-pandemic, and then we hired a bit of a new team. So like fresh slate, we've been thinking about this lean transformation, let's like do it. And so we kind of studied and put in a plan to start with this fresh slate of lean. And I mean, what's amazing is one is just the energy in the space. I think when you visit, hopefully you'll feel
I'm
it.
so excited. Yeah.
See that people are so engaged. I think people generally come in and they're super, super engaged and care so much about what they do. I don't have too much more proactive work on that front. It kind of now happens on its own. The other aspect that is pretty amazing is how continuous improvement, which is a core tenet of lean, shows up in a physical manufacturing workspace. Like I was out of the office for 3 weeks in the summer on a trip. And when I came back, I was like, damn, it's so noticeable how much the studio has improved and how through little incremental improvements that everyone on the team was making. And it's very inspiring, I think, when you just see that like everything keeps getting better and better all the time. And it instills belief in all of us. Like we can do pretty amazing things because if in 3 weeks, just by doing small things, we got like this much improvement.
I love this. We have not talked about candles in an hour and 6 minutes of doing the podcast. And I do want to know, what is it about candles that excites you so much? I'm a candle lover. I think scent is one of the most potent tools, and fire as an element is one that I love. And I mean, every element is important, but there's something so ritualistic about fire. It's so grounding. It is so gathering. And I just love candles. I'm curious your journey with candles. I heard you on a podcast talk about you and your founder as roommates, just being like two bros loving candles. And I love that.
Yeah, no, I'm not surprised you also love candles. And we need another podcast episode to fully do justice to this topic. But I will say, I actually went through a bit of an evolution in my own sense. I think everything you said, I felt from the beginning. We were big, like you said, Steve and I are huge candle nerds, and we spent a lot of time kind of psychoanalyzing ourselves and being like, why is it that this thing is like so magnetic to us? And then I had a stage very briefly for a few months, maybe 5-6 years ago, where I remember saying like, I don't really care about the candles. I care about this business as a vehicle of purpose. Candles is not so important to me anymore. And now I feel like I was crazy when I said that. Like that doesn't make any sense. Now I've like really in like a third stage of love for candles. And I think especially as I follow tech news and the sort of disconnection. And again, coming back to the social media topic, I find candles are such a perfect cultural piece for this moment because they really symbolize to me a kind of like quiet revolution. They're a little bit this like statement of like, I'm choosing something else. The world outside may be moving in this direction, but I'm choosing to take a pause and to celebrate my own culture in some way. I think there was actually, did you hear this recent Freakonomics podcast episode about, I think it was a couple months ago, they released a podcast episode called Why Do People Still Use Candles or something like that. And it was framed in a funny way that essentially they were asking, we don't need, light anymore. We have electricity. And then why do we still burn candles? And they brought an anthropologist on, and it was kind of funny because it sounded like she was a very competent anthropologist who was well trained, but she wasn't particularly a specialist on the topic of candles. And so she was more talking just like, I think I like them because of the fire. So it wasn't really anthropology based. And I felt like they were chipping away at the like outside of the real answer, but not quite getting to the middle. And I kind of wanted to shout at them that like candles are culture. Candles are culture. And that's why people like them. Like, why do people spend, $50,000 on or more or way more? It's like, we don't need them. It's not like we're eating the dresses. But of course, humans need more than just eating and sleeping. We need self-expression. We need culture, or culture is really an umbrella for lots of different needs. And I think there's so many things underneath there that I love. And I think the more I've read over the years, feedback from our keepers, especially in our annual survey that we do every summer, where they share their rituals and how they use their candles in their daily life, it makes me appreciate candles that much more. Just the way that, to list a few things, they're a companion. They're not technically alive, but they feel alive, and they're mirroring you almost. Like they're next to you.
I just need you to know, like, I have been in a state of goosebumps for like the last 5 minutes of you talking, and currently still. I just need to call that out.
Well, I love that.
Yeah.
They help ground you. They help me be my best self in a way. Like when I'm lighting a candle, I can't be I can't be
You're
any
not in
happier.
a bad state when a candle's burning. You're just not. Like, you're just simply not. A candle is burning in the room and you're good. You're okay.
Yeah. And yeah, I think it just be a huge helper, whether you're an artist and it's to find your groove and inspiration. They can really tell your brain like, okay, now it's time for that.
Hmm.
Some people use it for the reverse. It's like when it's time to work and they're working from home and they want to turn on the candle to help them get in that mind space. We actually have more people do it in the relaxation mode, especially working from home, to help them differentiate from work time and home time. They'll turn on the candle at like 5 p.m. or whenever they want to like log off work, and it kind of tells them like, okay, I'm in a different mindset because it's so hard to compartmentalize your work life and your home, your personal life when you work from home fully. And many, many other ways and rituals and really beautiful, beautiful ways that candles kind of support you ultimately in finding connection and finding,
That's what it is to me. It's connection.
yeah,
Like,
it's all about
it's
connection.
connection. Like, that's to me, there is something ancestral, it feels. Fire in general, but there's something about the purification of a candle. There is something as you're seeing it go down, it's something bigger. It is those things, yes, like bookending your days for sure. And that knowing of the candles burning, all is good, but there is a connection that's bigger that's happening, in my opinion, in my feeling and in my knowing, you know?
I certainly feel that way.
I'm sure you do. I'm sure
Big
you
time.
do.
No, yeah. Again, it's just really cool to hear. I think I have my own ways of using my candles, but hearing our like long-term subscribers describe how they use them and how they integrate them into their daily rituals and the ways that they ground themselves and become more
Yeah.
present for the things that are important to them is so cool and so rewarding.
Love it. I love it. Okay. Well, I have kept you so long. I do want to, if you can give like a short answer on what makes Keap candles different than other candles in terms of how it's
I
made.
can share definitely a few elements of what makes us different. So one is our business is primarily geared around a subscription. You don't have to subscribe to buy our candles, but it's what we think is the best way to experience it. And it's a very flexible subscription. You can skip unlimited, you can postpone by a year if you want, and you can switch your scent. But when you're our subscriber, apart from getting a better price and goodies, we really create sort of a seasonal rhythm and offer a lot of accompaniments that just make it something really unique and that has surprised me in how much it's built a sense of community as well around our candles, or really around the idea of creating presence and connection in your home through candles. The second aspect that I would say is a very rigorous definition of all natural, where the fragrances are 100% plant-based and 100% biodegradable, which surprisingly, counterintuitively, don't always go hand in hand for specific ingredients. Lots of essential oils actually degrade much slower than the sort of biodegradability standards that are commonly accepted. And contrary to popular belief, there are really not very many all-natural candles by any standard. You might find some at the farmer's market, but I would say, or where people put some lavender essential oil in like a beeswax candle. Those are all natural. Whether they're like super good is a subjective question. But in the luxury candle space, there's nothing all natural because it's really hard and it's pretty expensive. And the really hard part and the really expensive part, we've kind of been able to solve for those in ways that I can go into if you're interested. But basically, you kind of get the best. You get master perfumer, sort of, I would say like Michelin star level of scents, and you get the fact that it's all natural, and that combination I have not seen from anyone. The third thing I would highlight is that we, like I mentioned before, we make all our stuff in-house, which there's no other luxury candle that I know of, at least in the United States, that retails in the United States, that does that, as far as I know. And making things in-house just gives that all that extra control. The folks who aren't making their candles in-house are getting a contract manufacturer, a handful of contract manufacturers make those. And they do a really good job at doing a ton of different things pretty okay. But we get to do one thing really, really well. We only make candles, which is pretty unusual, and I don't anticipate us changing that anytime soon. And we really want to do this one thing really well. We can't really compete with contract manufacturers due to their scale, their decades of engineering systems that they've built on like doing lots of stuff. But we can definitely do way better than them on making one thing really, really good, as good as it can be.
Does a vessel that it comes in matter?
Big time, big time. Yeah. So I'll say one thing that no one knows, which I really want more people to know, because we invest a lot of money on it for one, but also we're quite proud of it. Pretty much all candle holders that are glass candle holders are made with soda lime glass, which is fine. It's not a bad glass. Nowadays, it's almost entirely coming from Asia, and it needs to be very thick in order to be sufficiently heat resistant. So that's why your candle holders are often like super thick. And as a result, they don't really make a great drinking glass after you use the candle because they're kind of weirdly thick. Our glass is made by an amazing 150-year-old family-owned German glass manufacturer that is made with what's called Triton crystal, which is very strong, and it doesn't need to be very thick to have that same heat resistance. So as a result, you have a really elegant, thin glass that is a fantastic drinking glass, similar to what very nice Michelin-starred restaurants might use. And yeah, we make a point of making it easy to repurpose your glass. I remember when we started, I was honestly very skeptical that people would reuse the glass, but then I was put to shame because we just found out that the vast majority of our customers actually repurpose their glass, and we get lots of photos sent
Love
to us
that.
too, which is cool.
So I want to close with this. It's the question that I ask every guest that comes on the show. The question is, what were you like as a kid? And the reason that I ask it is that a lot of times when people are building and creating, whether it's in business or they're creating something from their purpose, a lot of times it doesn't have to be the exact same thing, but there's an essence that's similar to what you were like as a kid. And I'm curious if that tracks for you at all.
Yes, it tracks for me. I would say as a kid, I was very, it depends also what age, but I'm going like quite small. I was like very...
Try to go like preconditioned version of Harry.
Yeah, very like jovial. Like I was just kind of very like open-hearted, very curious, and liked laughing a lot. And then the other thing that I think I remember quite early on being a little bit like, let's say this, in my own very small, not very meaningful world, a bit skeptical of like structures of power. I'm thinking specifically of the two captains of the soccer teams at recess in my primary school. Where I was like, how did they get to be the captains? What is this BS? Like they're like, they shouldn't be the captains.
It's that the thing is that kids know, which is why I asked this question. Like kids know, like that's not a non-meaningful world that you were living. You just
So for us, it was
like
very meaningful.
picked
Yeah.
up on it, you know?
Yeah, that and I think just also because of being the only like foreigner and religious outsider in my school, I just became really curious about when I found other people who were their own version of that, and so people who were different from the rest, I was like, I want to meet you. That's who I want to talk to. And so I definitely always gravitated to like whoever was kind of most different. And yeah, I think that's definitely in lots of ways informed our business that we have now.
It's felt. So congratulations on everything that you're doing. I'm in awe, and I'm just so grateful for people that are doing it, that are showing examples of it, and that are also thriving. You know, I think we need to see and hear more of that so that people aren't so scared and can actually follow through on their knowing. Because I do think that a lot of people are waking up. I do think that a lot of people are questioning their relationship to social media. Business owners are feeling that burnout of creating for something that has no results, like you said. And having someone like you be a lighthouse of there's a way to do it, and you can thrive and stay in integrity. I'm just so grateful. So thank you for doing what you're doing.
I'm blushing, but and I'll also say, yeah, I really appreciate just how you bring this lens of joyfulness and purpose, and I think, yeah, people really need that. I think your conversations are bringing that kind of inspiration that we really need right now.
Thank you.